Hey, good day, everybody. Dave Walker here, co-founder and CEO of the Beta SMB Institute, and I am pleased again to welcome Carissa Reiniger from Silver Lining to talk about a very special, I think, program to aid small businesses that she has recently launched. So, good morning, Carissa.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good
I
morning
said
for
before we
me.
launched that I've got my fake flowers and I've got my Zoom blazer. I'm ready to go.
Awesome, absolutely awesome. So, and it's really not morning for you. It's 6 a.m. for me,
I
and it's
think it's
what time for you
midnight
in
for
Australia?
me. It's something like midnight. Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
2020, so it all blurs. It doesn't really matter.
Right. But this is worth getting up for, and I hope worth staying up late for.
Definitely.
So, look, I just give a quick 411 on Silver Lining for those who haven't, of the many people who have seen your presentations about your small business assistance programs this year. Give us a quick background on you and on Silver Lining and what you do and how you do it.
Great, thank you. So the short version of a long story, if that's possible, I will try, is Silver Lining. We have a SaaS program that helps small businesses grow. So we've spent the last 15 years studying patterns in what helps a small business succeed and what prevents a small business from succeeding. My background is in psychology. And so we use behavior change science to really understand how do we wrap, robust support around a small business owner to help them hit their financial goals. So our mission, our passion is that we can increase the success rate of small business and that there's no reason that so many small businesses have to fail. That actually the data we have and the work we do says that if small business owners have the right structure and support, the right clarity of vision, the right goals in front of them, we really can see them increase their chance of success. So that's our core business. We work with businesses around the world. Small businesses in 25 countries use our SLAP program to set growth goals and hit those goals. We're 100% focused on helping businesses build profit and sustainability. So we're always looking at metrics around the financial success of small businesses. And then in the midst of that, and sort of alongside building our core business, we run a global movement called Thank You Small Business, which is just about celebrating and supporting small businesses for all that they do, because quite frankly, it's a very thankless job being a small business owner, and people like us, right, are constantly marketing and selling, and their families want more of them, and their staff want more of them, and very few people are just thanking small businesses. So the premise of the movement is to thank them for their service. We do a lot of work around economic justice, and then as we're going to talk about today, we have literally hot off the presses today made the announcement that we're launching a lending fund, a pilot to try to change lending for small business.
And that's what I want to talk to you about, because when I read and talked to you about read about the program and then talked to you about what was the substance of it, I thought it was really quite extraordinary. Not your usual lending program by any means.
No.
So I'm going to give you the stage to really talk about it, and I might interrupt you like I usually do and ask you questions
that would be
along the way.
expected.
But I think it's not just the story of this lending fund, but really the substance beneath it that I really want you to draw out, because I think it really it opens up really new possibilities for the way we consider, quote, the quality of a small business.
Yeah.
In any regard.
No, so please do jump in and guide and direct and interject. But the basic premise of this is that for the last 5 years, literally, I have gone and talked to or pitched 67 banks and small business lenders in multiple countries around the world. And my premise to them was, listen, in our core business, we are helping small businesses set financial goals and then hit those goals. And we've got all this data, all this behavioral data that shows with reasonable levels of accuracy that if business owners do these things, these behaviors, then they will hit their financial goals. And so if we have data that says that, and if we know what their revenue targets are and what their cash flow looks like, why don't we lend against that? Why don't we try to run a pilot where we lend against the data that we have? And let's see if we can come up with a more fair and, quite frankly, a more accurate way to assess credit worthiness in a small business. And the reason that I was so passionate about this, and I talked to 67 people and got denied 67 times, is that when we talk to our small business owners all day long, every single day, one of the number one things that they talk about is how much they hate their bank and how they need reasonable access to capital. And when we look at sort of the tenacity of an average small business owner, and I've said this a million times, but I'll say it a million times more, like I can't imagine a better risk than a small business owner. These are people who have their reputations on their line. They're providing for their families. They work so hard. These are not people who are going to take your money and run and think like, well, that didn't work. I mean, these are people who work so hard, arguably, now this is controversial, but arguably even harder than a VC funded business entrepreneur, right? Where there's this huge amount of capital and there's almost an expectation, well, it might not work, we might not get to revenue. The average small business owner is literally living on the revenue they generate, them, their families, their teams. And so there's such a commitment to seeing things through that when I sort of looked at the market of how we're lending to small businesses and sort of the idea that number one, they're not a good risk, I don't agree. Number two, if they're going to get access to capital, if they don't have sort of a perfect credit score and perfect cash flow and collateral that they can lend against, then they're going to end up at an alternative lender with really high interest rates. Those interest rates are ironically prohibitive. And my belief is that, this cycle where we lend to small businesses with high interest rates is a negative factor for both the investor and the business owner. You're decreasing the chance that the small business can pay that loan back because the interest rates are usually higher than their profit margins. And if you're decreasing the chance the small business owner can pay it back, you're obviously compromising the success of the fund or the business that's doing the lending. So you've got business owners that are a great risk. You've got a system that quite frankly doesn't work for them. You've got a system that in fairness doesn't work for investors trying to do it. And then you've got this sort of broad scale industry of technical assistance where banks and lenders always say, right, every bank and lender on the planet has this program, which is, well, if we're going to lend money, we should also make sure that we're helping the small business, right? But the traditional technical assistance programs are on the side of someone's desk. There are a bunch of webinars or it's a boot camp on how to read a P&L. I mean, it's not actually effective at all. Mm-hmm. And so all of this to be said, our theory is to flip all of that on its head. We have a program that is one of the most comprehensive support programs for small businesses I've been able to find on the planet. So we're doing that technical assistance first. We're starting with, let's help them succeed. We're watching their behavior. We're watching their data. We're saying, yeah, this person exhibits behavior that shows that they are responsible, that they do what they say they will, that they're essentially worthy of a risk. And then we're taking our capital and we're giving it to them at a fair interest rate, unsecured loans. And our belief is that it's a pilot, we'll find out, but our belief is that when you lend in such a way that it is fair terms, when you don't make it prohibitive for the small business, but you actually connect it to their business strategy, you can make it fair for the business and you can protect the investors. So we're starting with $1 million pilot. We have an initial $1 million investor. Our goal is to sort of lend that money out over the next 6 months. So we're not trying to, make any fast warp speed here, but we want to test the algorithm, adjust, lend in multiple different scenarios, try different things, learn as much as humanly possible. Hopefully prove that all these things are true. And then in 2021, go raise much more money and really expand.
I'm just, laying it out. It takes my breath away even now. I think that it's like many really brilliant things. It's so obvious. It's so obvious that the usual actuarial tables that are used to underwrite risk of loans to small business are actually all pointing in the wrong direction. And probably most importantly, as is a very commonly told story, the small businesses that can get money don't need the money. Exactly. And it's just such a mismatch. And I think that, what, if nothing else, what COVID has taught all of us who are related to small businesses, that for small business, cash is king. The cash, the flow of cash and the access to capital to maintain that cash flow is absolutely critical. Totally. So I really want to unpack this kind of the tie from the behavioral approach that you take to help small business and using that as demonstrative evidence that they are worthy of attention, worthy of investment, worthy of really basically the reward of you are absolutely the right kind of risk for us as a lender. So tie that out for us a little bit in detail.
Yeah. So in our core business, because we're a software company, we're collecting just a ton of data points. I think it's like 127 data points that we're collecting in live time at any given time. So we
So
know.
what are some of those data points? Just
Yeah,
as an
so
example, what are some of those that you
obvious
like?
things like every time someone logs in, every time someone updates their action item, every time someone adds a sale against their sales goal, every time someone downloads a template, every time
Mhm.
someone signs up for a live Slap School event for training. So any of their activities, we're
So
also tracking.
not to oversimplify it, but it's a little bit like, and those who know me know I've done Noom, and I've been very, very happy with the results of losing a lot of weight with Noom. You are kind of Noomifying
a
this
hun-
process of fixing the business where those check-ins of here, I logged my meals, I did my steps, I did my exercise, I drank my water, I did these things that you're able to see in their engagement with SLAP, which is an acronym for Silver Lining
Action plan.
Action
Action
Plan.
plan.
Perfect. That their engagement with SLAP is really something that you can track very accurately.
So exactly. And so let's even go back a step further. So behavior change science, which Noom is based on, which Weight Watchers based on, the Fitbit, the 12-step program, SLAP, right? We're all using the same basic premise, which is not that complicated, but it essentially says, if you want to help someone change their behavior, right? So instead of you using your example, instead of you saying, I'm going to do a 10-day cleanse, I'm going to do these extreme actions that are not sustainable, I'm not going to actually build any new habits, I'm essentially going to try to do some sort of extreme thing to give me warp results. That might give you short-term results, but we all know the classic story, right? Then you gain the weight back and all of a sudden you're either back where you started or heavier within 2 weeks later.
Mhm.
Noom is trying to create for you, like Fitbit, like the 12-step program, like Weight Watchers, like Slap. It is trying to create new habits. It's trying to create sustained structure and a new way of thinking that ultimately changes your behavior in such a way that your life changes and you get the result that you want, not just now, but for the long term. So what behavior change science says is if you want to help someone change their behavior to get the results that they want and ultimately instill new habits so that this becomes a lifestyle, not just a campaign, you need to do a couple of very simple things. Number one, you have to gain commitment, right? So one of the interesting things that we know is that if we give Slap away for free, so let's say we want to give it away as a door prize or we want to help someone who needs it, their chance of success is less than 20%. If that same person pays $1 a month, the regular rate for our program is $300 a month. If they pay $1 a month, they don't have to pay 300, they don't have to pay 100, they just have to pay something. Their chance of success goes up to over 70%. So it is that
That's
first step.
breathtaking.
It's
That is breathtaking,
bananas.
actually.
It's bananas because you think, and this is an important thing for all of us small business people. We always do free stuff for small business, thinking we're helping them. But it is having an absolutely astronomical impact, in my opinion, on the success rates, right? And what we count when we do work with small businesses is how many people came through our program or how many attendees we had at our webinar. Who cares? Did those small businesses actually change anything? Did their life get better? Are their results better? Is their business better? And so I believe that if you want to shift from just measuring outputs and you want to actually measure outcomes, then you've got to have that first step of behavior change right. You've got to gain commitment, right? If someone had given you Noom for Christmas before you wanted to use it, no help to you, right? If someone signs you up for the gym because they want you to get a six pack, if you don't want a six pack enough to go to the gym, it doesn't matter. You
Right.
have to make the first choice. You have to be committed to it. You have to have some skin in the game. So that's the first premise. The second premise is that you need to set modest goals. Noom does a great job of this, right? Fitbit's really interesting. They literally set the goal for you, 10,000 steps. They've decided that that's a modest goal, right? It's aggressive enough that it moves you into action, but it's modest enough that the average person can accomplish it. If you, and most business owners do this, if you've got a business owner setting unrealistic goals, either too small or too big, or just not based in any type of reality or context, well, of course they're not going to hit that goal. Then they start to program themselves to believe, I can't hit my goals. This is impossible. And then we as a society think, oh, small businesses never hit their goals. Have any of us stopped for long enough to ask, do these businesses even have the right goals? Is anyone helping them
Right.
set
Right.
goals?
Right.
They can't afford $97,000 consultants to build their plan with them at the beginning of every
Right.
year. Like they're flying dark 99% of the time. So if we help them set the right goals, modest goals, well, of course, we're instantly going to increase their chance of success. Next, rigorously track behavior, like you described, which we do very much in the software. Build self-efficacy, teach people that they can, right? I'm sure Noom gives you like little, Dave, high five, you did that thing and look what happened. Hey,
Yes,
Carissa, like you
they're
walked in.
hilarious. Yeah, they
Job.
obviously do. Yeah.
Literally, that's behavior change, right? It's reinforcing good behavior because it gives us these little dopamine hits. We feel really good, and then we want to do it again. But more importantly, from a psychology point of view, we start to think, oh my God, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can lose weight. Maybe I can stop drinking. Maybe I can hit my growth goals. Like maybe I can actually do this. And that's more powerful than anything. And then behavior change science says you've got to have outside coaching and counseling, and you've got to have a peer network of support. And ultimately, you have to do all those things long enough that you have time to build new habits. It's long-term sustained, right? If you think about the 12-step program, they get the badge for the number of days they've been sober, right? They're literally counting every day because they know from a behavior change science point of view, the more days they're sober, the more ingrained this new behavior is, the more sort of safe they are from relapse. And so there's a basic science to this. And all of us, we can apply this science to anything in our life. In this case, we're applying it to small businesses and their financial goals. But when you understand that that's the science at work, and all of us can see it at work in the programs we've been a part of in our life, it's really straightforward. So essentially, this was a very long way of saying, to your point, inside of SLAP, we're tracking all these data points that help us understand, okay, number one, what's their behavior? We're rigorously tracking their behavior, and they're tracking some of it themselves, and we're tracking lots of it just by watching their behavior in the software. We're tracking the actual progress towards their financial goals. So how much time and money are they spending to hit their goals? What percentage of their goals have they hit? How much money have they generated this year? And then we're also tracking anecdotal data. So every single time a small business talks to their SLAP expert or one of our SLAP managers, we have a form that pops up automatically. All this is automated through technology. And it's like going to a doctor's office. It's like writing the doctor's note at the end so that there's a complete file for the business. But in those interaction notes that everyone documents every time they interact with one of the small businesses, we're tracking a combination of real-time live data, like where the business owner is actually at, and then the opinion of the SLAP expert and the SLAP manager. And all of that information together forms this incredibly robust view, essentially, of how the business is really doing. And that's the information that we're lending against, that collective data.
So talk a little bit about the 120 kind of data points that you're collecting. Are they bucketed in things like marketing? Are they bucketed in things like sales and operations? Are you letting the small business kind of design their program? And I guess the analog would be in Noom is that there are some concentrated goals and measurements around activity and
Right.
exercise. There are some goals and instruction around food intake. There are some that are around water intake. Are there analogs basically in what the plan is trying to drive you towards?
Very much so. Very
Okay.
much so. So when the small business builds their plan it's a 12-month plan that they build, their action plan, takes them about 3 hours in our guided software. Every single plan is 100% unique, but follows the same basic formula. So essentially it's 100% customized to the small business's specific realities, but they go through a very structured process to get to that outcome. In their plan, they first go through an assessment of sort of their priorities, their values, their mindset. They set a time budget that matches their priorities, personal and professional. They understand and make a real commitment about how much time and money they can commit to growing their business. Because one of the things you see in a small business so often is they say, I want to make $1 million. And you say, well, how much money did you make this year? And they say, 110,000. And you say, well, and then how much money do you have invested in your marketing and sales? $6,000. Okay, so you're not going to make $1 million this year. So what we're trying to do is ground them in reality, but in a good way. Like this is your life. These are your priorities. This is what this is what you need from your business. This is what you can offer it. Then we get into the practicalities of, what do you do? Who do you do it for? Who's your ideal client? A deep review of their finances, personal expenses, business expenses, revenue streams, pricing, profit margin, down to a sales goal, and then their action plan, which is the 12-month plan, which is essentially their sales, marketing, business development plan, all in one organized, templated structure. And that's the plan that they build. Then once they've built that plan, it takes 3 hours. We teach them that we want them to learn the 3 SLAP habits, we call it. Number 1, take the right action. Number 2, close sales. Number 3, pause and reflect. And what we're trying to teach them through the process of this 12-month program is that actions equal results, right? So if you're not getting the results that you want, you don't say, oh, well, these results suck and throw them out the window. Right. You say, okay, something about my behavior is not working, right? I gained 5 pounds. I didn't lose 3 pounds. Well, it's probably true that you ate too many brownies, or it's probably true that you didn't go on the treadmill, right? So if these are the results we're getting, whether we like them or we don't, what we have to be constantly doing is evaluating the behavior, the actions that we took that inevitably resulted in those outcomes. And then we just need to get really strategic, simple in our thinking. What action should I increase? What action should I decrease? What action should I change? And so when we talk about taking the right action, what we're really focused on with this business owner, or all the business owners, is not saying yes to everything, not running around like a chicken with your head cut off, not feeling pressure to do things a certain way, but actually knowing your business and yourself so well and being so comfortable and confident that you're so clear that this is the outcome you're trying to get to, that you get better and better and better and better at optimizing your behavior. So that's habit number 1. And so there's a huge amount of tracking against their action plan, adding new ideas, adding new action items, taking things out, accomplishing them, measuring how long it took them to accomplish an action item, how much money they spent on the action item. So we're essentially helping them build the action plan, but then really we're modifying it constantly for the next 12 months and tracking the time and money spent on implementing it against the sales goals that were created. So that's the first bucket. The second bucket is you got to close sales, right? So you've got business owners that we call it like the chasing shiny object syndrome, right? They're at a networking event every day of the week, but they don't ever actually get any proper leads. And then they don't actually turn any of those into sales. They're just waiting for coffee all the time. So we talk a lot about what it looks like to build a simple funnel. When you create a new contact, how do you identify if they're actually a potential customer? And then how do you translate that into actually closing the sale? And we teach them, they enter inside the software all their projected sales, and then we show them the ratio between projected to closed, right? So if you're closing on average 20% of your projected sales and you need to make 10 sales, well, we can do pretty easy math to tell you how many new connections you need to make. So we're trying to take what can feel really overwhelming to these business owners and literally show it to them. Okay, so here's your behavior, here's your results, here's the correlations, and here's the recommendations for what to do to optimize your behavior. And then the third bucket is what we call pause and reflect. And what we say to the business owners all the time is, being busy is not a badge of honor. The best business owners pause and think and ask themselves, right? What is the relationship between my actions and my results? How do I optimize my actions to increase my results? And so we have a very sort of structured and guided process where they enter, if they want to reflect on the last day, week, month, or quarter, how they're actually feeling. So we're tracking emotion tied to results and behavior. And then how they assess themselves. Here's how I think I'm doing in growing my business. We take those 3 things plus their data. We feed them a custom set of questions that they pause and reflect on, open text box, like essentially business journaling. And then the system actually makes recommended actions that they can choose to add to their plan or not. And so it's those 3 things that we're helping them build a plan around, modify, but constantly optimize, and really trying to remind them that yes, data is helpful. Yes, there's relationships between all these things. This is not a mystery. We always say, this is cheesy, but there's no silver lining. Sorry, there's no silver bullet to growing your business, but there is a silver lining, right? There's nothing that's that complicated about growing a business. But what we need to get business owners to do is slow down and just understand their business better, understand how the pieces flow, understand their own role in it, release this sort of burden of being busy and actually shift to being productive. And what we've seen time and time again, we've got lots of business owners that have been slapping for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And for those guys, they hit their goals every year. It's not even a question because they've learned the mindset of how to hit their goals. It's a mindset more than it's a plan. So when business owners say, I'm thinking about hiring a consultant, $10,000 to build me a strategy, I say, don't do that. You just need a basic framework. It's not about the plan. It's about the action. It's about how you take the plan and implement it. That's the success factor. So when we lend, we're lending against that action behavior. We monitor their behavior for a minimum of 2 months to see the trends that we want to see and sort of having good behavior, and then we start to issue loans.
So what's the, for those businesses that go through, and you have been doing it for many years now, what's the success rate of small businesses who go through the SLAP program? What do they acknowledge as, yeah, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have this program helping me?
Well, I mean, that's so there's a simple and a not simple answer to that. So the numbers, just pure and simple, if 100 small businesses sign up for SLAP, 5 will never properly activate. So it's like I got a gym membership on January 1st, but I never ever went to the gym. Right. We always say that we're like the anti-subscription model. Technically, we could just keep charging their credit card, but if they've been inactive for essentially 60 days and we can't get them to activate, we just cancel their account. We're not going to take a small business's money. That's against everything we stand for. So we're going to lose 5% right off the top. If they activate, we have a very high retention rate. So if let's say we've got 95 left, we'll probably lose another 5 over the course of the year. But the majority of those 5 we'll lose will be because of some sort of a crisis. So a flood in their basement, their mom died, something dramatic typically happens to them. And there's a crisis that they enter and sort of they're in crisis mode, not how do I, organically grow my business mode. So now we're left with 90. Of those 90, typically about 75% of them hit the financial goals that they set. So we're we're very, very clear that our success is not whether they like us, our success is not whether they're like, I tell a friend about SLAP, although we appreciate that. Our success is, did these people actually hit their goals, right? I didn't build a business that's gonna, hopefully help small businesses because a bunch of people started my program. I will think I've done my job in the world if we've actually built something that creates success for them. So we track almost without fail and sort of almost unilaterally, what percentage of our customers hit their financial goals, the goals that they set for their business.
So as kind of a final question, and it's a big one, so you might have to take some time unpacking it, but it strikes me that the methodology of assessing the quality and the risk worthiness of small businesses on a lending, in just the context of lending, is number one, can directly be applied to other, quote, risk-based offerings to small business. So whether it's insurance or leasing or or investment, direct investment, those are all things that would it suggests to me that you could use the same methodology that you're using. But do you think that there's really it goes beyond that? And if you said that everyone listening to this who's in the B2 SMB space that is in charge of marketing or in charge of sales, that they have to spend an enormous amount of time evaluating the worth of a prospect and at a number of different stages. Do you think that using the kind of data points that you're talking about to really assess the quality of the risk in investing the time to market and sell to a prospect, is that applicable there as well?
Totally. And I think, so there's probably, to your point, I've got like 27 things I could say to this, but the top 3 things I would say, number one is at a very philosophical level, right? So if we go all the way to the biggest picture possible, I believe that we've gone totally wrong in the world of entrepreneurship, right? We are a culture obsessed with raising millions, selling for billions, steroid pumping businesses to try to get quick exits. And all of those things, if we're measuring based on metrics like that, valuation, how big, how quick, how many users you can get, how big your revenue can get, how many full-time employees you have, right? Like if we are stuck in sort of the stone ages of old school metrics in sort of a new school VC model, we are literally missing 95% of the entrepreneurs in the world. We are just totally ignoring, not to mention the volume of them, but the economic engine of that group. I mean, that group is more powerful than the shiny objects that we seem to be, amazed by because they're on the cover of a fancy magazine. So at a philosophical level, my voice very strongly is always sort of, like, let's be careful about what we're saying is success, because it's actually really insulting to small business owners. Small business owners are driving our local communities. They are literally driving the economy. They are employing more people than anyone else. And yet they're just sort of like the forgotten child in almost every company. I think we've talked about this before. It drives me bananas that in almost every big corporate structure, small business is either like the half child of consumer or the under duckling of enterprise. I mean, it's just crazy to me. Like this is a massive economic engine with so much possibility. I mean, we got it wrong. So that's the first thing I would say. So yes, we've got it wrong in my opinion. At a more practical level, I don't know the genesis of when we decided that a credit score and, having good cash flow was the be all and end all of entrepreneurial success. But anyone who's ever started a business like you or me knows you wreck your credit score at some point because you're balancing cash flow when you're maxing credit cards and your utilization rate goes over 30% because you got to either pay the rent or pay your staff. And you're generous enough as a human that you're not going to protect your credit score instead of making payroll. I mean, these are the decisions business owners make all the time. And so this idea that we want business owners to take these risks to build and innovate, the American dream, if we're talking about America, and then we punish them for the inevitable outcome that comes with taking risk. You hurt your credit score sometimes. Your cash flow sucks sometimes. I mean, it's at such odds. We're doing it wrong. We're not being fair, quite frankly. The systems don't make actual logical sense. So I think that that's true. And then that leads to, yes, I think that whether it's SLAP data or other behavioral data, there are so many ways to think about who is a good investment, right? Whether that is a good investment of marketing dollars or a good investment of a lease or a good investment of capital. And I think it speaks to the fact that we have such a narrow view of what we've decided success is, and it's such a narrow view of what we've decided sort of credit worthiness is. I mean, to me, it's so narrow-minded. It's so short-sighted. And quite frankly, it's completely illogical. I mean, if you just think about it for 4 or 5 minutes from a very logical, common sense point of view, it doesn't make sense. I mean, everyone's missing opportunity. The people who market to small businesses, the people who sell to small businesses, the small businesses themselves. It's a system. No one's winning. So we totally need to shake it up. And I think we can.
So that's a great place to kind of wrap this up and to say, wow, if we really can all kind of have that light bulb go off over our head that says, wait a minute, the methods that we have used, which felt safe and familiar and quote time tested, of measuring the worthiness of a small business as a prospect, as an investment, as someone worthy of a loan or of a certain level of insurance, maybe those are just wrong. And I guess last thought or last question is, do you think now more than ever, as we kind of exit this year when so many small businesses have been devastated, and I don't want to think, I can't imagine that there are very many P&Ls that are going to look very good at the end of this year. So as the tax returns are done and the financials are done and the documentation that quote is the foundation of how you will be evaluated as a small business, it's going to be ugly for millions of small businesses. Isn't it a good time to pause and say, wait a minute, maybe the methods that we're using really can't apply. It's not that they don't apply, it's they can't apply, because no one will get anything done, because we're going to all look at this vast number of millions of small business and say, geez, they're not worth selling to, they're not worth marketing to, they're not worth investing in, they're not worth loaning money to. And that is kind of, I think that's a dark undercurrent of what's going on right now and amongst a lot of B2 SMB companies, is not just our customers are in trouble. I think people genuinely and very passionately want to help small business, help their customers. But on the other hand, they're also kind of with that CFO hat on, and that are looking at that customer base and going, we got to find another, we've got to just change who we're selling to, because we're never going to be able to get back to the numbers that we had before, because there's too many small businesses that are just too hampered, too restricted. So I think that I guess it's a long way of saying, do you think now more than ever?
As you were talking, I went through like multiple phases of emotion. I actually teared up at one point. I got so mad at one point. I just went through all these emotions because, so first of all, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Why we think that doing small business the same way we've been doing it the last 100 years is going to work, when I don't think, quite frankly, it has been working even before COVID, is crazy. Certainly with COVID, right? In my opinion, we've got one of two options. To your point, the underbelly is making me a little nervous that we're not going to make the right choice as an industry, right? One version is we help. We jump in. We say, you know what? We've made bajillions of dollars on the backs of these people for all these years. If there's going to be anyone with the resilience and the tenacity to figure this out in the next 24 months and get our lives back, it's probably small business owners. These are the people that we should be making the biggest investments in, the biggest bets on. I mean, who else is going to get our communities back? Who else is going to start hiring people again quickly? I mean, it's small business. So one option is this is a wake-up call, and we realize how valuable this community of people are, and we get into the trenches and we rebuild the economy together, which is a very viable option. Yes, it's hard, may not be as profitable for the next 2 years, but it's a viable option. The other option is we write them off and we say, well, we had our heyday. We all made our money on the backs of small businesses. Now it's tough for them. They got hit hard. Our only option is to pull chute and go find money somewhere else. To me, I don't know. I just think there's a special place for those people making those decisions. I mean, it's not right.
And it's not in a nice place.
It's not a good place, if that wasn't clear. It's not right, first of all, that these have been our customers and then we walk away when they need us most. But also, it makes no sense. From an economic point of view, it makes no sense for any of us to abandon small business right now. I mean, it's just to me, it's just the craziest thing of all time. And then the only other thing I would say is, I say this with all the love in my heart, but also a little bit of challenge. Like, if you're working in a big B to SMB company and you still have your salary and, your company still has X bajillions of dollars in the bank and, you're worried about your P&L because it's going to suck for a couple of years. I get it. But you have got to remember that the small businesses are wondering how they're going to pay their rent. They are wondering how they're going to get their kids, childcare so they can go back to work. They are wondering if they can get their staff jobs again. I mean, and they're not giving up on themselves. They're not giving up on each other. So I feel like we need a reality check here. The people who are suffering the most are not giving up. And if the people who still have salaries and jobs and budgets don't have the sort of chutzpah to not give up on this group, that's not right. It's just not right. It's not right at a human level. It's not right at a sort of a corporate responsibility level, but it also makes no sense logically from an economic point of view. Small businesses are not giving up. We can't either.
What a great call to action. What a great summation of what you've been talking about. Congratulations on this program. $1 million. I got to believe that's going to impact hundreds of SLAP small businesses. Has the potential of impacting hundreds. And I hope, beyond hope, that quickly you demonstrate the positive impact of this and that your vaccine trial goes really, really well here. Because
only shut down a couple of times.
Yeah, exactly. So that much sooner than later, as we enter 2021, and it's going to be the hangover year. I think it's going to be
this isn't going anywhere anytime soon. No. We are in this for a while. And so it's not time to hang up our hat. It's time to put our boots on and get to work. I mean, this is it. We need to get to work.
You're my hero. You continue to be. And I'm so appreciative of you doing this. And thanks for coming back again and talking about these amazing programs that come out of your mind and you actually turn into reality. It's amazing. So thanks very much, Carissa, and looking forward to seeing you, I hope, next week online.
Definitely. I'll be there. I'll see you all.
Alrighty.